Beloveds, I am so glad you're here this evening. Celebration of Spirit. And we are going to have a unique evening, an atypical format that we usually do. And I am excited for you to get to be a part of that. We are celebrating a lot of folks. And one of the things we are celebrating is the Guadalupe Feast Day, which is tomorrow. One of my favorite feast days, and if you have heard me preach on Guadalupe before, you know that I consider her the goddess of mixed girls. And she is someone that holds a really special place in my heart in the goddess realm, because for me, she is the mishmash of Mother Mary and Tonantzin, the Aztec goddess. And there's a lot of history there, and if you want to know more, go check it out. I'm not going to talk about that tonight. And maybe the AV team can help me later this week, but I will put links up to my previous talks on Guadalupe, the last two mid-Decembers for the last couple years. But for me, she represents specifically this year, for this time we have together, is really honoring all of these beloved humans who make up this community. And this mishmash of beliefs and lineages and cultures and traditions that all of us who are present right here and right now bring into the space. And Guadalupe asks us to celebrate the mix match. And I love that about her. And I celebrate it every week. I light a candle for Guadalupe every week on my Sabbath, because I mix up faith traditions on a regular basis. Anybody else? Right? That is one of the beauties and honors of this time in history, is we have access to one another in ways that were never possible before the internet. Right? We have access to other cultures, other people's daily lives, maybe more access than we really need. However, there's this beautiful thing that we could celebrate and be really intentional about, which is that every through line and every lineage that crosses paths in your life, in the life of this community, can be used for good. Right? We can look at the ways our faith traditions are really different and celebrate that. And we can look at the way our faith traditions may benefit one another. Certain rituals or ceremonies that have maybe been in your ancestral lineage that have carried through and probably shifted and shaped and morphed along the way. You can invite someone who maybe doesn't have that shared lineage into your tradition, into your ceremony and ritual. You may find, like I found, like Catholicism is not a thing as far as I know in any of my family history. I'd love some Guadalupe. And so to honor Guadalupe, I did the work of doing the research and learning her history and understanding the conquistadors and the colonization and all of the debate around her history and the way she may or may not have come into being. And so I honor the Aztec tradition and I honor the Catholic tradition when I celebrate and make my own Guadalupe. What an awesome thing I get to do in 2020 something, right? As a mixed girl in America with no Catholic or Aztec heritage, this is something that I've been able to be benefited by. How cool is that? And I tell you, there is a benefit in every single chair that is filled in this room tonight, every being who's on the other side of that camera. You bring a benefit. You bring something to put in the mix. for good, right? For honoring, for celebrating spirit. And when we do that honorably, when we do that intentionally, consciously, you and I do the work of spiritual diversity. You and I do the work, the labor involved of really becoming aware of other faith traditions and practices and norms that may be different than yours, looking for the ways that they are really different, not trying to homogenize it all, but to honor it. And to look at the ways like, wow, that's really different than anything I've practiced or understood in my life. But wow, I am now enriched by this. I now can celebrate with you. I now can widen my arms, widen my heart, widen my understanding and awareness and consciousness to include more. Yeah? And so I've been thinking about this Guadalupe season and how it kind of lands for me in this winter moment, in this moment of being invited to slow, invited to rest, invited to move more into the dark. And one of the ways that I've really been sitting with Guadalupe's story in that context is thinking about that the wholeness of life, the wholeness of spirit, which is plenty big, right? To hold all these traditions and all these stories and all these ceremonies and rituals. And it's also big enough to hold the tragedies that go along with some of these stories and some of these histories. It's also big enough to hold the reality that Guadalupe did not come into being out of some like lovely moment. Guadalupe came into being out of colonization and the conquistadors basically slaughtering the Aztecs and stealing their land. And yet, spirit is big enough to hold all of it. And I was thinking about what happens when I allow myself to hold all of it. I allow myself to be changed, to be impacted, to be moved by the whole story. Not just her metaphorical representation to me as a mixed girl, but also as a mixed girl that gives me more permission to hold my own story. The things that coalesce in my being, the histories and the lineages that come together as me right here in this moment. Some of it freaking fantastic and some of it heinous and dark. And so I invite you to lean on Guadalupe over this next week or bits of time, to lean on the rising of a new goddess out of some heinous, tragic shiznit. Because sometimes that's how we rise, is out of the hard stuff. And we can celebrate that too. We can honor all that makes up a moment. And let us be grown by it, be shaped by it, be changed by it, be expanded by it. And so I'm going to invite you as we move into this celebration of spirit tonight to allow yourself to include the totality of all that went into this evening. All the humans who have been love in action, who have been heartbroken, who have been in grief, who have been in giving, who have been in supporting and holding, who have been in prayer. Every single one of those contributions, and I say contribution as widely as it can go, have come together, have mixed and mashed and collided at times, and made this moment possible. This is what we celebrate tonight. This is what delights me over the moon, to get to be a part of community mishmash. Because it is holy, it is sacred, it is messy, and it is good.
I celebrate all of the beautiful ways that Spirit shows up as my spiritual community.